Hello everyone. So as promised in my previous video that I will be discussing about what development I did in order to achieve this functionality, that is translating the text on the screen into multiple languages that I select from the drop down here. So if I select French, then it will translate the above text into French language. In my previous video, I already discussed about how we can make use of the Apex class to retrieve the translations of the custom labels defined and then make use of them in whatever places you want. So I have used that in my flow actually. You can make use of that Apex class into your LWC or anywhere. So you have to go first and watch my previous video in order to get initial understanding of how custom labels are designed and how you can create the translations for them. So in this video we won't talk about the defining of the custom label and how the translations are created. Rather, we will make use of this already defined labels and translations into our screen flow. Here I will discuss what all components I created to build this functionality. But make sure you watch my previous video where I talked about how you can enable these translations in your org and create the custom labels. And again, yeah, definitely I will talk about the Apex class as well, where we can make use of that retrieving of the translations of the custom labels. So first step is to create a custom label. So I've created one with the name as sample label, where I put this English string letters. As we can see, string message, English message basically. Sorry, and I've created the translations of the same message into different languages like German, French, and Japanese. Okay, so if I go to custom labels again, I have one custom label here, and there are three basically translations of this custom label, and I'm going to make use of this in my flow, which will again make use of the Apex class in order to retrieve those translations. So basically I've created one flow here. On the first screen I will just go step by step, so you get the exact understanding of how this functionality can be built in your org as well. So first of all, this is translation is nothing but the name of the flow, and in there I have a display text element where I display the English version of my text, which is nothing but whatever the custom label English version is. I have just put that on the screen so the people are aware that this is the text that we want to translate to. Then beneath that you will see one normal here translate to. This is just a message for the user that you want to translate the above text into which language. Then the second element is pick list, where the user will select the language where they want to translate it to. So here I will give you a very important information here. While you are configuring the choices for this pick list, make sure the value of those choices are exactly the translation code of that language. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So if you see, I have created three choices. One is, let's go to French. So this French is the visible, or we can say this is the label on the pick list drop down. This will be shown to be selected, but behind the scene the value of this pick list will be this FR. Why FR? Because FR is the translation code of French. So user will see French, and as soon as it selects, the value will be stored as FR. Why? Because this is the language code which we will use in our Apex class to fetch. I hope this is clear. While you are configuring the choices, make sure you choose the value as the translation code, not the exact the language name, because we use the code of the language to retrieve the translations of the custom labels. Similarly, for German, I might have defined this choice value as DE. This is the language. You can search in Google the language code, translation code of the languages. And for Japanese, it should be JA. This is to show on the UI, and this is to store behind the scene. Okay, now let's go back to our screen component again. So you got to know this language pick list element that we have created and defined three choice. One is German, French, and the other is Japanese. These are the choices that I was just showing you. They store the language code as their value behind the scene, but they will show the exact name of the language. Okay, So there we are done. Now the next step is, after the user selects the language and click next, let's rename this as well. We can rename the finish button as translate. This will make more sense, I think. Done. Let's save it as a new version and activate. Now the next step is, after we have captured the language from the user to which he wants to translate, then we will use the apex class. Now you might be wondering, why don't we directly use the translated version of the above text, I mean the custom label whatever we have designed here, directly in the flow. So let me tell you, my friend, even if I make use of that display text, suppose I want to directly access the custom label, I want to directly access the custom label and its translations from flow, you will see one thing. There's a limitation basically. Although we have the option here, you see, suppose I want to retrieve the custom label, I can go there, and this is the custom label that exists in my work. If I click here, label, but there's no option to retrieve the translation. This will only give me the English version of this custom label, this one. So that's the limitation, and that is why we have to use the apex class. If I just show you here, let me name this something, label, and if I simply debug it here, you will see that the flow will only be able to fetch the English version of that custom label, and no translations can be fetched. I hope now you got to understand that why we cannot directly fetch the translations from flow, and that is the reason we are using the apex class. Okay, so I hope that is clear. And although we have the option to retrieve the custom label, but we don't have the option to retrieve its translation in flow. This is one of the limitation. I think Salesforce will definitely bring this in future releases. But let's go to our next step. The next step is that we have to define one apex class, invocable apex class, that can be called from flow. So this is the apex class that I have written, and this is invocable, annotated with invocable. This is the name of the method, and this is the label and description of the method, basically what it does. And it will accept the language code from the flow, basically to which language needs to be translated, and we'll store that language code in a string variable. Okay, then we will make use of this, whatever, this is the main update of apex in Salesforce, that we can now actually fetch the translations of the custom labels. So this is the syntax of retrieving the custom label: system.label dot get. The first parameter is namespace, which we do not require here, as this custom label that we have created is not part of any managed package. And then the second parameter is name of the custom label. So the name of the custom label is this one. And the third parameter is the language code of which you want to retrieve. So language code we will already receive from the flow, so it has been already stored here. And then we'll just add this translated message that we have received into a list and return that list. As you know, invocable method can only return in the form of list only. So this is my apex class, very simple one. If you want, I can go through again, that it will accept the language code from the flow. I will already show you here how we have configured this in this. In the flow, we have invoked an apex action where we have selected our apex class. See, you can see the label is here, get translated label. Okay, and here we have declared arguments basically, and we are sending the language. If you see the in the screen component, whatever this, the name of the pick list is language, so whatever value has been selected in this component will be passed in this apex class. Okay, and then there is one advanced feature, that whatever value is returned from the apex class, that we will store here. This is the normal variable that I have created inside my flow only. You can see translated text. I'm just created this variable to store the output value returned from the flow. I mean the Apex class. So very simple. We just got the translated version of the custom label, stored it in a string list, and then added that in a list of string, and then return that list that will be captured here in that variable. The first element of that list will be stored here. This is the functionality of working with invocable methods basically. So if you want to know more about invocable methods, then there is another video in my channel where you can where you will get the full understanding of how invocable method work and what are the syntax of those. For now, it's just it accepts the parameters in the form of list, and it always returns the list, the invocable methods. That is the shortest information that I can give now. And then in the next screen, what happens is I will just display that translated text whatever has been returned. So if you see, I've just put one simple message here, translation in language. Here I am using the, you can see the binding operators. So whatever language was selected in the previous screen, I'm just showing over here, and the whatever translated text that have been returned from the Apex class, that I'm displaying here. So this is the entire functionality. If you want to just go back and see, we can relate it here that on the first screen the entire English message was displayed, and there was a text called translate to, then the language option to be selected, and you just rename this button from next to translate. Then after clicking on this is the message that comes, translation in French. Whatever language I selected in the previous screen, French will display here, and the exact translated text whatever has been returned from the Apex class. Now you can relate step by step. Here you see, and we already renamed that button to translate, and in the final screen we see the translated version of that text. And this is how I was able to build this functionality in my org. You can do the same in your. So first of all, you have to go and watch my previous video where I have talked more about this particular feature, Apex feature, where you can retrieve the custom label translations in Apex class directly. This is what the major purpose of this video was. You can go back and watch that video there. Thanks for watching.